Good morning. It's Monday, the 4th of February, and I'm wearing a yellow shirt, but it's not Mr. Bungle. It's Super Mario Brothers, so even more adult. It is a really beautiful morning, which I feel it's necessary to say because of how nice it is. And so I finished what happened since yesterday. In the afternoon, I started to write the second component that I wanted to try and get finished that day, only because I had a small window of time that I thought I'll see how I go. So I got down a few sentences which helped me this morning. So I finished that paragraph, and then I finished that component, and then I started on, just let me say, on, let me check word counts because this is making me laugh and wonder in nice ways, but curious ways. Okay, so yesterday, what did I do? Just looking at what I've written, I'm just wondering, oh, okay, no, that makes sense now. Okay, so I started a component yesterday and then I finished it this morning. Came to around 500 words. Perfect length. Then I started the second component, which was just going to be of a similar length. And it's got to 1700 words, which is just total blowout on what I thought. And just going back to the second component was 1,000. I thought that was much bigger than I anticipated. 1,700 this morning. I've just got to be careful. I've got to be careful because I've got a flow, like a particular tempo in my head for how these pieces should go, these components of the monologue. And I don't want to label one section as being too big, but then, so the best way to approach tempo sometimes is to not have them all be the same length. It's like sentences. You don't want them all to be the same length, or it gets very mechanical and repetitious. So, and there is something, really interesting and indulgent about having such a big focus on one thing. Maybe it's the right thing to do. It feels good. Like I've just read it back, and I really like it. But I think the thing I'm starting to think about more and more, and I hope this is not the seed of increasing uncertainty that ends up me pulling back from what I'm doing, because I don't think it should. It's just something I've got to overcome in my head. But it's the novel was from its start. I'm just going to go back to monologue 1 to have a little look at what I've got. So I guess the novel has always had autobiographical elements to it that are purposefully so, purposefully autobiographical, but also distant enough and fictionalized enough to not just be a biography of someone who you think, well, do I really want to read about Craig's life and Craig's thoughts? So I'm just reading through the first monologue now to just see how it compares with what I'm writing now. Well, I guess the difference that I'm picturing immediately between what I'm doing, and so here's the thing. The first monologue is very autobiographical, but it's what I'm experiencing of the world in a psychogeographic way, in that it's descriptions of environment and reflections on those spaces, but it's very externalized. It's my experience, but externalized and projected onto spaces, in which case it's more description of the environment rather than a description of me, even though it's being filtered through my thoughts. And I always knew this second monologue was going to be about my younger life, and not about not because I think that I'm interesting enough to do that with, but because I wanted to write about the that early period that I lived through in that transition between the 90s into the noughties, and the period, how it felt, and so, and I'm capturing that really nicely, but it's so personal to my own experience of that, which I guess is, I mean, that's surely got to be the best thing, rather than trying to create a pastiche of things that sound like and feel like they should be of that time. I mean, I feel I had experiences that were very, very unique to me in some ways, but maybe not. And maybe that's the purpose of writing them down, is that it feels like it's a very personal thing, like playing the pipe organ at a church for weddings when I was younger, which is what I've just been writing about. And I think even if I just hope it's interesting enough, I just hope the way that I'm framing it is interesting enough and not trying to be conceptual in a way that's like, well, you're reading it because it's meant to be boring, or this is, I mean, I really think that's being quite unfair on what I'm doing. I'm the pace I'm keeping, the way I'm shifting between topics, it feels good. I'm really happy with it. I'm reading it back and I really like it. I look forward to reading it again. It certainly captures for me things that I haven't thought about in my own life that are really interesting. But that is the point that I need to consider. Is this just interesting to me? Is this interesting to others? But I just keep thinking, write about what you know. It's not like the whole book is going to be a blow-by-blow description of my life. But they are real experiences and real reflections, and they're unique in that I haven't ever read anything like this in any other book, which is what the whole point is of making something like this. And it is going to be so infused with other fictionalized components, and this feeds into that and needs to feed into that, because it is the way that fiction comes out of autobiography is probably the most profound way I can think about it at the moment. That, you know what, I'm really happy with it now that I've said that sentence. That's exactly what the book is about, the way that fiction comes from autobiography, and to lay that on the page, not to write a fiction book and you think, oh, how did the author come up with that? But to have it all happy, very happy. That's got my mind out of that space now. It's good at 1,700 words for that last component. And you know what? The next one might be a long one as well. We'll see. We'll edit later. We'll progress confidently and happily with what's coming along. I'm really pleased I got to get that down this morning. Finished off in good time. Yeah, I'm going to wrap it up here. Get ready for the day, for the work day. Hope you have a nice day if you're watching, and I'll see you tomorrow, Tuesday the 5th of Feb.